Good morning. This is the Blaze Roll webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and get more information and listen to previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blainsworld.net. You'll also, if you go there, you can see a show or two featuring Dan Beckman and Erinn Dearth. You've been on it. This is what, the 17th or 18th time, something like that?
Yeah, it might even be in the 20s now.
But who counts? Anyway, I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce two of my friends, Erinn Dearth and Dan Beckman, creators of You Read. A reminder, I was going to ask you to give a big wave. You beat me to it. Creators, creators of Letters from Home, being my guest today, and for those not familiar with it, I'd like to mention that Erinn Dearth and Dan have performed this show across the country and around the world. And now Dan is directing a film called Legacy, the story of Letters from Home. They'll be diving into their life on the road, the amazing veterans they met, and the adventures they have had along the way. And before we even begin that, let me just ask you guys kind of the Reader's Digest version of your story. Um, I met you several years ago, saw the show, but even before then, you've been in show business, I guess both of you. Dan, when did you get into show business initially?
I guess officially when I graduated college, I got a job right out of college and I never looked back.
So in college, were you a theater major?
Yeah, I was an acting major actually, not a musical theater major, but an acting major and a film studies minor, so that's coming into play a little
Hey.
bit now.
And before that, like as a kid, had you done acting or anything?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into it as a social outlet when I was in middle school, and it really stuck because I was always a class clown, but this
Oh,
allowed me
no,
to.
I find that hard to believe, Aaron.
Well, hey,
Really?
I got a lot of testimonials from very tired and distressed elementary school teachers that will back me up on it.
So do you remember the very first show you were ever in?
Yeah, it was a show in seventh grade called "Help! I'm Trapped in a High School," and I was just in the ensemble, and I basically remember being thrown into a jail cell in the cafetorium that we performed. That's what I remember from that. The rest of the time was it was all social and ADHD.
Now, do we have a record of that somewhere?
That's a great question. I'd love to see it if we did. It would be interesting to watch and kind of surreal. I have no idea what to think of it.
Well, I always had that as an idea, Dan, that that'd be a great even fundraiser for you guys, to see Dan in his original first production, or even better, you could recreate it, 20 years later now or whatnot.
We could
See,
act it out with the original production on the screen behind us. Just capture all the nuance from 12-year-old Dan.
tell me how cool that would be. Aaron, the same thing too. You started a little before Dan, right? You started as a kid, if I
Pretty much
recall.
out of the womb, I was a big old,
Gross.
I'm here, world. I've always been singing and dancing at home, and then when I was 3, my parents got me into tap dance lessons, which really goes into what we're doing here with Letters from Home. Because Letters from Home, we sing, we tap dance, we make a lot of jokes with the audience, and so I've been performing singing and dancing since I was about 7. I was in my first professional production when I was 7, but my very first show was Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute. And I played child number 9, who
It's a good
really,
role.
yeah,
It's a good role.
I really wanted to be Woody the Owl,
Hmm.
but I couldn't quite get the voice down at the
You
time.
got beat up by Brando for that part.
Uh,
So now, do you have a record of that somewhere?
I do, and I just watched it, which is why my memory is different.
Did you let Dan see that?
I haven't yet.
I requested to be excused.
Okay, so that's really cool. So you started then as a kid and you've sort of never stopped?
Yeah, never stopped. I've always loved the arts and performing, whether it's being on stage or backstage or dancing or singing or acting. I really love everything to do with the arts.
And what's so cool about you, you also teach, you have all sorts of courses going on all the time. So talk to me then about Letters from Home. What was the idea behind that initially?
It came from my dad, Pat Dearth. He's a Coast Guard veteran, and I used to have a company called First in Flight Entertainment, and we would do a lot of different shows all over the community. We would do them in retirement communities. And I was asking for ideas at a Sunday night dinner, and he said, "You should do a veterans show. You should do a show that's catered towards our veterans." At the time, it was our World War II veterans. And so we got together 3 ladies. It was me and a woman named Sarah and a woman named Heidi, and we did all Andrew's sisters' music. And it was all for these World War II guys. And then as time went on, the World War II guys started fading away, and we really needed to incorporate more of the Vietnam music, which is kind of where Dan came into a big part of that.
Yeah, we definitely now have it. It's got a very different tone. It used to be very glossy and three-part harmony. Now the show is a lot like a jukebox musical that features rock and roll from the 60s and 70s, but still has that tap dancing and that classic kind of USO feel to it. So we've been all over the country with it, all over the world. Blaine, you've seen the show.
Yeah, and I have to just jump in there. It's one of just such a great show. It's such a fun show, and people have so much fun with it. And I guess that Dan segues right into this concept that I saw the show, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, whatever. But then, how did you come up with the idea to do a film on it?
Yeah, so we've actually we're in post-production right now for the documentary of we took a 50 states tour in 2023. We went to well actually 51 including DC stops and did 51 shows in 4 months during the early spring of 2023. And we carried with us a documentarian who captured every moment. And for the last 2 years, we've been painstakingly filtering through all of this imagery to put together a documentary that features not only the adventures of the tour, but also the history and the impact of Letters from Home as a show.
Now, how
Uh,
cool was that? You actually did you make it to all 50 states?
We
yeah,
did
and
in just 4 months' time, actually, and we traveled with six of us total. It was the two of us, it was our stage manager and our technical director, Grace and Tyler, and then we had our road manager, Myra, and then Jack, the documentarian that he just mentioned.
and you'll meet all of them if you come to see the film. And they're all characters in this piece, of course. So,
Now, so since you mentioned it, we'll talk about when people get, I guess, the first opportunity to see the film, and that'll take place when.
so the film premiere, the global premiere, is November 6th.
Yeah.
At 7:30 p.m. and it's right here in North Carolina. It's a homegrown product after all. We're going to be showing it at the Carolina Theater in Greensboro, and it's going to be a whole, red carpet movie, just like the old Hollywood used to do.
Absolutely. We're going to start out with a VIP event, which is going to be very red carpet with photos. We have reenactors there. We actually have a World War II veteran coming who is celebrating his 103rd birthday, so we'll be able to celebrate him while we're there. And we're just going to have a great time. We're going to celebrate everyone who's in the audience and just the really fun accomplishment. And also, more than that, the beauty that each and every state has, because there are so many things that this country has. And it doesn't matter if you like the coasts or the mountains or if you like the tiny towns or the big cities. There's something in America for everyone. And that's what we really hope to celebrate.
So I can't see it, but do the shirts have each of the 50 states on it, or a lot of them?
Well,
They
it's got a fair number of them. It's hard to tell some of them apart, like Nebraska and Colorado. There's just a beveled edge, isn't there?
So when you were performing all 50 states, so they actually saw the same show or a variety of the show that I saw?
Yeah, I mean, the show's evolved quite a bit since last you saw it, but it is essentially the same product. And all 50 states got the same product. As you know, there's a lot of audience interaction and crowd work and stuff, so nobody gets quite the same experience. And we actually had a whole section that was catered to each of the states that we were in at that moment.
Oh,
But
really?
like everything you need to know about North Carolina. And then we would talk about the state bird and the state drink. And then we would go on to make jokes about the state, which went over sometimes better than others, but it was always fun.
yeah.
Well, so I guess if they go, they're going to learn something about their state as well. But I remember, and I assume it's in the show too, my favorite number was the one where you do each of the veterans groups get up. And what's the name of that number or talk about
It's
that?
just it's we sing all five of the branch songs. So we sing the song of the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard, and everybody gets to stand up who has served in those branches, and we go out and shake hands and kiss babies. And that's kind of been a staple, I'd say, since the very beginning of Letters from Home, because
Yeah.
that veteran support is the root of the product.
And not only do they get recognized, but then they see people that also served. So when we have intermission, you'll see these guys that were
Oh,
both in the
really?
Air Force coming across and being like, "Where did you serve? What did you do?" And watching that brotherhood is really special too.
Now, was that a number you wrote or had been written before?
Oh no, that's old. That's as old as the country. I mean,
Yeah.
older, in fact. I think the Army and the Marines song are from 1775 or earlier, so they're
Yeah.
old songs.
No, what I loved about it, but you put them all together though in that one, I don't know, it's 10-minute segment or how long it takes.
It's 42 minutes.
But no, is it really?
Yeah, no. No, it's like maybe three
Say
three minutes.
yeah,
It's pretty
it's like
short, but it's all five songs, and they all know the tunes. That's the great part, is because they
yeah.
listened to that song when they were doing their business in the military. So
So
it brings them.
sometimes they'll sing along, especially the Marines. They're
Well,
the loud oorahs.
well, I guess you're going to have a tough decision on November 6th. If people are watching the show or watching the movie, are you going to let them sing along?
I think that's always been our philosophy is to get people involved. So if they want to sing along, I more than support it.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's like they have now movies, Sound of Music, the sing along version. So you could have the sing along version as Letters from Home. Down
Yeah.
Exactly.
there.
Well,
And
and what's fun about this is it's not our full show. It's actually a documentary on the history of Letters from Home and things like that. So there are some musical numbers in it.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of the songs that we did in the tour, but usually it's an underscore to the lesson that we're trying to teach in that moment. So it was kind of interesting to take because we always have a mission with our shows. We always choose songs and try to sell a message with each of those songs that we sing. And so this was kind of the film was kind of our way of taking those songs and being able to talk about them in a documentarian sense. So there's a lot of fun moments and you know travel B-roll. You've seen those, you've seen tour documentaries for rock bands and things like that. This is the same thing. Lots of broken chairs, cocaine, same sort of thing.
You'll also see us, we perform all over the country and weird venues, big venues, small venues. So you'll see us perform in Washington, D.C. We actually performed outside the Lincoln Memorial there. And
wow.
then you'll just see so many different kinds of
We
theaters.
had a small show, like we sometimes perform in veterans' homes, and we were able to make one of our stops the Veterans Home of North Dakota. So you get to see the whole gamut of what we do, but also you get to see stuff that that affects our lives, and we have friends talk on their experiences in Vietnam and their experiences as immigrants to this country. So I'm hoping it'll be a pretty powerful and moving story.
I was going to ask you, so in terms of the 50 states, what was first of all, the smallest venue you played in?
Vermont,
Yeah.
a thousand percent. It was a very tiny theater, under 100 seats, and it was a very snowy,
Under
snowy
100 is
day.
a very friendly way to put it, too.
So how many people were in Vermont?
About 50. It was pretty full for the small venue.
Okay, very, very cool. And the same token, what was the largest venue you played in?
Maybe Oklahoma
I think, yeah, Oklahoma we
or Georgia.
performed at the
We had several over 1,000 seat theaters that we
yeah.
performed in.
Okay. And one of the nice things about your upcoming show, the debut of the movie, that's a pretty big theater also. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, it's a 1,200 seat venue.
So there's
Well,
plenty of room for everyone. We hope everybody who's watching comes to the Carolina Theater on November 6th to share this with us.
would they even listen to it? I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've ever, or when I was a kid maybe, but when was the last time any Radio City Music Hall I went
Yeah,
to as a kid? But when was the last time anybody saw a 1,200 seat, theater? Pretty cool.
yeah. It's very rare unless you're doing, you're on in Broadway or on national tours or seeing Aerosmith.
Exactly.
So Erin and Dan are not quite in that category yet.
Well,
Well,
we're in the same theater, so you can draw whatever that you want.
that's right. In fact, one of the, a few of the theaters we performed at, one of my favorite things is the folks backstage allow you to sign the wall.
Hmm.
Oh,
And so
really?
you'll look at this wall and it's filled with like Fleetwood Mac or there's all these old vaudevillian performers. We signed next to Wanda Sykes, who had just done a comedy show at one of
Strangely
the
enough, we
theaters.
also ran into a theater in Connecticut called the Kate.
Oh
And I
yeah.
went backstage and I said, those signatures look familiar. And I looked closer and it was actually signatures from my cast when I was much younger and toured with a production of Curious George. And we had signed
Oh,
the same wall.
you've been in that theater?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, my first national tour.
Do you remember being in that theater?
Yeah. Yeah, once I was there, I did. I mean, we did so many venues that they kind of blended together, but once I was there, it's a pretty venue too. It's a nice venue, old.
Did that happen also? Did you appear in other venues that you played in?
A few. We did
Yeah.
the Gulf Theater in Punta Gorda, Florida. We've been there several times. We also performed our 51st show at the Lincoln Theater in Marion, Virginia, which we have an annual production of and kind of feel like family at that venue.
Our
So,
North Carolina show, we sold out the High Point Theater. That was pretty amazing because it was, I think, what, 900 plus people sitting in there. And
yeah, and we knew half of them, so that was
yeah.
really special.
Very nice. So Dan, now all of a sudden you become now a documentarian. Do you see yourself doing this in the future?
Yeah, but I would do it in the future. But the interesting thing is that I'd never done it before, which tends to be how I operate in life is I'm interested in a project and just decide to jump in and figure out how to do it on the
And
fly.
by the way, just to digress first, it seemed like marriage. Can you imagine that all of a sudden you meet a woman that's in the business, and you did that for the first time, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and she held me up at gunpoint, and I said I do.
And the rest is
It was
history.
magical.
So you were saying, so this first time you've done a documentary, you think you'll do others?
Yeah, I would like to, and I learned a lot doing this. We kind of did it backwards. If anyone out there is in the film industry, with a documentary, you kind of have a set goal and story structure in mind, and you set up interviews and you tell stories based on that story. Here, we basically said, Jack, come with us and film every moment, and then we'll figure out what the story is afterwards. So it was like going back through 4 months of daily, all day long footage and figuring out how to make a story was pretty overwhelming, and I learned a lot. So
He would be in that studio room just watching clips, filing them. Aaron having fun, Ira being interviewed, sweet veteran after the show, like just filing and filing and filing.
How many hours of clips do you have?
it's a good question. I mean, it's hundreds,
Yeah.
hundreds for sure.
Well, this is exciting. So this can be first the first one, and then we can do two, three, and four, five.
Yeah, this first film is going to be a modest 5.5 hours, but it's the first. It's a first in a 68 film series. So
Well, that must be tough for
If
you.
you're listening, that was a joke, and please come because it's only
It's
going to
all,
be an
it's
hour
all,
20.
it's only 4.5 hours.
yeah,
But
right.
but that must be tough for you though, seriously, as putting it together to have
Yeah,
to cut it. I guess it's analogous to a show, the same thing too. When you have a show, you have to cut it down. Is
yeah. The difference is, and what's tough is they say don't direct the documentary about your own life. And it's true. I mean, it's really hard when you're so close to something for not just the 4 months that you tour, but also the years you put into preparing for that. And you kind of have to put a different hat on to recognize what is truly important from this 4 month story that we can stick into an hour and 20-minute film that's going to resonate with everybody and not just the people who are there on the road. And so that was a big challenge, is just figuring out, of the hundreds of stories that could be told, what are the 8 most important ones to stick into this film.
just listening to it, I want to see, I've told you I want to see it. It's such an exciting concept to hear about when you first put it on. And talk about even that process was kind of interesting. So you had to all of a sudden fund this too. You did a GoFundMe campaign, you had to raise money to do this. How is it? You had to raise a bunch of change to put this on to get around the country, did you?
Yeah, we did. And Aaron can talk on this more because there were definitely moments where we hit the road and we were still building the bridge, the financial bridge out in front of us, so to
It
speak.
was crazy because I'd never done anything of this capacity, and I planned it for 2 solid years. And right before we left, I had sold like 10%, maybe not even, of the venues, not even. And so there was 6 people that I was responsible for the next 4 months, plus their travel, plus their stays, plus all the venues that we had to pay that we were going to. And we pretty much only had money. I mean, I can say it now because it was successful, but we pretty much only had it for the next couple weeks, and then I didn't know what we were going to do, but it always works out. And we would literally get to a venue, we'd sell tickets, we'd sell merchandise, and then we'd have enough to get to the next venue, and we'd do the same thing over and over again. And it was a huge like release. We wept so hard at the last show because everything had been so successful
And we
and
were broke.
exactly.
And no, probably still broke and trying
Yeah.
to. Well, hopefully, if 1,200 people come and we'll sell concessions and T-shirts and whatnot,
Yeah.
we'll make.
And for that reason, the popcorn is going to be 15 bucks a bucket. You understand, it's for a good cause.
Okay. So, after this production goes on the November 6th, what happens after this?
So again, we're kind of new to the filmmaking world. We're going to figure that out. We're going to get it streaming in some capacity, hopefully. But right now, the goal is, just because of the logistics of how many bureaucratic hoops there are to jump through when you're licensing film materials. The documentary premiere on the 6th is the quintessential way to see the film for sure, because we're going to show it, put it up on the screen, have a good time. There'll be a talk back. We can discuss it together, and then we'll follow the production steps after that for distribution.
And then we'll see because there's film festivals, there's different streaming services, there's a bunch of things we don't even know yet, and we're not sure about who's going to come out of the woodwork to this premiere and kind of lead it on its next step. So we're keeping it open.
But what's so cool about this is so unusual and different than anything else. So fingers crossed that there may be legs on this as well. And then the offer always remains, you guys know this, we can also premiere it sometime streaming on Blaine's World,
Woohoo!
That'd be
so
awesome.
It would
Would
be
love
awesome.
to.
look forward to it. After this, so you recover from this a little bit. Are you still doing letters from home?
Oh yeah. Yeah, in fact, we just this last year did what did we do, 70 venues in 16 weeks or 15 weeks, something like that. So we're still going strong with the product. And now through the 50 states tour, I feel like we've really refined what we want the product to be remembered as too. So if you go out and see a Letters from Home show now, you're going to see what we believe is the best version of the story.
And what's amazing is before we set out on the 50 states tour, I was kind of thinking it as being a farewell tour because I was like, oh, our North Carolina community, we have so many amazing veterans programs. We've got veterans coffees, we have things that are honoring veterans, and I kind of assumed that that was happening all over the country. And it's just not. We got out of our hometown and we found more people that had never been thanked for their service or recognized or had seen a USO style show in the old essential kind of entertainment. So, it was really cool to see that there's still a huge need for this kind of thing.
And then, of course, communities became aware of us. And so we started getting calls from people who had been to the show, been like, I run a theater company downtown and we want to bring you in. So it was kind of the opposite of going into retirement. We kind of doubled our output.
Exactly.
And you mentioned USO tours. A lot of people have never heard of USO tours. And I guess as a final question to ask you both, and it's probably kind of exciting, when you perform this not only for veterans, but when you perform it for kids, I'll call kids, but people have never seen this or been aware of it, that must be kind of exciting too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And funny enough, the 50 States tour was the biggest outpouring of kids that we'd ever, because our show usually gets marketed to veterans groups,
Exactly.
and the people who come to see our show are generally in their 50s to 80s. Um,
Hundreds, honestly.
yeah, like Korean War veterans to Vietnam tends to be. But a lot of families would come out because of this tour being in different venues, a lot more theaters. Families would come out, they'd bring their kids, and we get comments about um, how they never heard this music before and how it appealed to them as a generation, or they heard the broadcast from the radio from the Vietnam War that we put in the show, and it brought up questions and discussions to have on the way home. So
It's amazing because it's a show that is pretty much directed at honoring a certain generation, but every single generation enjoys it for different reasons. And that's something that was a surprise to us, and we loved it.
And you mentioned in the show, and it's so powerful, it's not a political show, and it has, it's just for anybody should be seeing this show. So you got me psyched, guys. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be there November 6th, but just repeat the key information is going to be in.
Carolina Theater in Greensboro, North Carolina, and you can get tickets at thecarolinatheater.com. You can also get tickets through our website because there's a link there at lettersfromhomesingers.com. And the show is at 7:30. There's a VIP gala before then. We would love to have you there. There's going to be so many World War II veterans. There's going to be reenactors. There's going to be good food. So we hope that you'll come on out.
Unless I forget, Dan was kidding about the popcorn, $50 popcorn, but they will at least get a chance to also, we should give a shout out to you for your book you did as well. Will that be available then as well?
Yeah, so part of the tour, I'm a photographer, a landscape photographer, and on the tour, made it a point, even though it was a breakneck pace, to find spots in every one of the 50 states to capture in a photograph and kind of write a little journal entry about the experience of that state. And so we compiled that into a gallery and then published into a book called America the Beautiful. And if you're interested in that, you can pick it up at the documentary premiere too. And I think we'll be running a special on it there too. So
Yeah.
if you want to come get a real cheap piece of coffee table literature.
And if not there too, is it available on Amazon or elsewhere or a website?
Uh, Not on Amazon, but it's available on on my website if you go to danbeckmanphotography.com. And I think it's also on the Letters from Home website.
Yep, it's linked there as well.
And the website again is let's
Lettersfromhomesingers.com, and that gets you to everywhere you need to go.
Okay, well, anyway, I'd like to thank you guys both for being my guests on this edition of the Blaine's World webcast. I wish you a lot of luck on November 6th, but I definitely am looking forward to seeing it. Be well.
Thanks, Blaine.
Thanks.
Thank my guests, also my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and my hope is I'll get to see you someday again in the Asheville area in the not too distant future.
Sounds amazing.
Great, thanks, guys.